that you would be able to appreciate what's happening in front of you right now instead of that big roadblock that's down the road. Um, I've had the great fortune of speaking at your RILA for something like 15 consecutive years. And one of the things I really liked about the group was, helping all these young people understand basic principles in life. And I always ask them every year, what's more important, the past, the present, or the future? RILA is the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. The high school students all come together, 100 of them every year. I mean, I helped put 1,500 people through that program in those 15 years. And I would always ask them, what's most important, the past, the present, or the future? And it was interesting to see their faces, the head scratches. They weren't really sure of the answer. And of course, the answer is always the present. The present is the most important. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't reflect on the past, reflect but not dwell on it, right? And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't look forward to the future, because if you're a slave to instant gratification, which is essentially the present, your life's going to be not so good. So it was fun turning them on to that concept. And I think even as adults, it's good for us to be reminded that the present is indeed the most important. So even as I travel through life and I'm meeting people, I try not to worry too much about, stuff that's happening over here, because then I miss what's happening right in front of me. One day, I'll tell you about a fun story. I was on a shuttle bus on my way to Detroit Metropolitan Airport. I was using a shuttle service back in the day. And you know how it works. You park your car, you get in the bus. There's about 6 to 8 people on the bus. You're just never going to see these people again. And I'm thinking about my gig and my talking points and whether or not I'm going to make my flight and things like that. And I force myself, who's in the bus with me? Let me take a look around. Let me be observant of what's happening around me right now. And on the bus, it's hard to kind of look at everybody, but I'm staring at this guy in front of me and I'm thinking to myself, I know this guy. I know who he is. But if he's who I think he is, he doesn't want me to call attention to him right now. And I decide I'm going to try to connect with him when we get off the bus, because there's that moment where you get your bags and, you tip the driver and that sort of thing. There's a little exchange. And so this is just killing me. It's only like an 8-minute ride, but it's killing me because I think I'm sitting across from a famous person. And we get to the terminal, and everybody gets off the bus and is collecting their bags and paying the guy, slipping the guy some bucks. And I was standing right next to this gentleman, and I said to me, "Excuse me, sir, are you James Hoffa Jr.?" And it was interesting, his response. He didn't brighten like a lot of people do and say, "Yeah, that's me," possibly because of his line of work. He led the union for a long time. I think he's still in charge of the UAW. And sometimes when he gets recognized, maybe it's not a good thing. And of course, he's even more famous from his famous father, James Hoffa Sr., who is probably the most famous missing persons case in the United States. I mean, books have been written about his disappearance. I heard I Heard You Paint Houses by Charles Brandt, and the movie The Irishman, most recently, Martin Scorsese. Jack Nicholson played Hoffa in a movie directed by Danny DeVito many years ago. And so here I find myself talking to this guy, James Hoffa Jr., whose father mysteriously disappeared. He's now, this guy's big shot in the union. And he looks at me and he says, "Why, yes, I am." And I said, "Well, it's nice to meet you, sir. I just want you to know that I probably live in your area in Oakland County, and it's good to know that you're still working in Vital. I know you've been through a lot." And I said, "May I give you my card?" And I gave him my card. And at the time, I was doing a lot of what we call in the business conflict res work. Conflict res is short for conflict resolution. And of course, I'm handing my conflict resolution business card to a guy in the union, right? And they do nothing but mediation and arbitration. And I figured, man, I'm gonna just this one little introduction is gonna feed me and my family. This is gonna be like my 401k, So I gave him my card, and then as I walked away, I thought, what the hell did I do that for? I don't want to do more conflict resolution work. It's like the least. It's not a very it's rewarding, but it's very difficult work because you're always in the room you're always swimming with the sharks. You're always in the room with people that don't like each other. Well, things worked out just great because he never called me. I never got any work directly from him. I have done some work with unions, but it's not my stripe. Most recently, I've been doing a lot of work with municipalities. In fact, three, including Chatham, Kent, up in your part of the country, your part of the world. Municipalities have been through a lot with these strained elections and all this weirdness that's been happening, and it's been fun getting to know that area of work. Some of those events have been live with masks and social distancing, some of them on Zoom, but we're all moving forward. And the fact that it's Peace and Conflict Month in Rotary, I thought that was a nice tie-in to what's happening. I wanted to, in my remaining time, offer some strategies on what I think Rotary clubs should be working on right now. As I mentioned, a lot of clubs are coming out of the cave after a long period of hibernation. Nobody knows what this is going to look like in terms of membership numbers or even giving numbers. I have heard that estate planning is way up in Rotary for obvious reasons in the land of the pandemic. Kind of a sad result of what's been happening. But nobody knows what's going to happen with foundation numbers here as we move forward. So again, being mindful of the present, but looking down the road a little bit. Here are four things that I think the Rotary Club of Windsor, St. Clair should be working on right now. And I know a little bit about you guys because I did serve on the RILA committee with Carlo for all those years and got to know him very well. And Chuck Parsons and I worked together when he chaired your district conference a couple years ago. It was a great event at Little Caesars, not Little Caesars, Caesars. And of course, getting to know John through inviting me today. Thank you very much, John. So here's the first thing I think that all clubs should do. I think we need to shore up communications. In fact, I just did a free webinar for anybody that wanted to join, and it turned out we had a lot of Rotarians on, of how to build an email distribution list. Somebody had mentioned earlier that you have a lot of guests on the show today. If you had a registration process with your Zoom, which I'm not sure you did, you could have collected email addresses and then remarketed to all of these people moving forward. I highly suggest that you do this in the Zoom world. Having registration is an added step, and then those registrations have to be added via a CSV file, or it's not that complicated, but you import those emails to your list with their permission, by the way. You tell everybody you're going to do this. And now you have a database of people who care about your speakers, care about your club, might want to donate money to End Polio Now, whatever. So when you shore up communications, you have a way of doing this. Carlo, I'm so sorry to hear about your mother. It reminds me that we're not nearly as connected to our fellow Rotarian families as we were in the past. When I joined Rotary over 20 years ago, you had one phone number for the Rotarian, and it was the home residence telephone, the landline. Now what we have most often in Club Runner or DAC-DB databases is the Rotarian cell phone number, just that Rotarian cell phone number. And if that Rotarian's in a coma at the hospital, we have no way of connecting with the spouse to find out how that person's doing. And so to collect cell numbers of the spouse and adult children is really a good idea. And this is where the database comes in. This is where texting comes in. This is where shoring up communication, as they say in the military, shoring up comms is a good idea. The second tip is to get clear on goals. I've sense that there's a little bit of ambition here in the club about growing the club or having a good string of Zoom room speakers moving forward. And I think that's a good idea. That's healthy. How about getting clear on attendance? I think John and I talked in the early going. Well, John, thanks for inviting me to speak. How many attendees would you like to have? I actually can't remember his answer because I do a lot of these every week. But I love it when a club program chair or the person bringing me in says, well, we'd like to have 100 people on every call, because that's what we call in marketing the bullseye. You see, anybody can aim at a target on the wall. We want to have some people. We want to have a good crowd for you, Michael. We want to have more people than usual. I don't know what that means. So when you say to me, I want to have 100 people, that is a bullseye that I can aim at. We all can aim at. And then I can start promoting the event for you. I guess I must be one of the only speakers that actually promotes his own events. But I figured I was promoting your event, right? And that's how we got some people on to collect coffee from me today. Another thing that